Chosen one, there is something magnetic about the way you move now. And it's not because you're trying to be seen. It's because you've become undeniable. Your swagger isn't a performance. It's a symptom. A symptom of a soul that has finally come to rest within its own masculine frame. A soul no longer scattered in search of external validation. You are no longer moving to catch anyone's attention. You're simply moving as a man who knows himself, and the world responds because truth is louder than volume. You once may have thought swagger was about the curve of your shoulders or the sharpness of your look, but now you know the real secret. Swagger is born of stillness. Deep, disciplined, unapologetic stillness. And that stillness is not the absence of motion, it's the presence of intention. It's the silence between your steps that speaks the loudest. You've come to understand that true power doesn't need to rush. It doesn't need to dance for attention. It glows from the inside out. This is why feminine women are suddenly alert to you in ways you've never seen before. They're not responding to your clothes or your voice or your physique, though all of those may now reflect the refinement you've undergone. They're responding to your inner tempo. They're responding to the rhythm of a man who doesn't need to fill space, but instead redefines it by simply being in it. You walk differently now, not because you practiced it, but because your inner fire has changed the way your body moves. Your spine is relaxed, not slouched. Your gaze is deep, not invasive. Your hands don't fidget anymore. They rest like they've held the weight of something sacred, because they have. You've held your own edge. You've sat in the furnace of discipline and walked out carrying calm. And that calm has become your gravity. The world doesn't know what to do with that gravity. It turns heads not because it's loud, but because it's real. Women can feel it, especially the feminine ones who move through life attuned to the unspoken. They don't look at you like they look at others. They pause. They hold your gaze a heartbeat too long. Their words catch slightly in their throat, because when you move past them, something ancient wakes up. Not fear, not fantasy, but recognition. Your swagger tells a story now. A story of a man who faced his shadow and didn't flinch. A man who learned to stop chasing applause and started listening to the silence within. A man who carries sexual energy not like a boy desperate to release it, but like a king who chooses when to offer it. Every movement you make reflects that choice. Every step becomes a message. I am here. I am whole. I need nothing. And from that place, I create everything. This is the difference between what you once were and who you are now. Swagger isn't about having all eyes on you. It's about not needing a single one. It's about walking with a stillness that humbles noise, a rhythm that settles storms. You don't walk to prove yourself. You walk because every part of you knows who you are. And the feminine doesn't just admire that, she feels it. She feels her own energy shift when you enter the room. She feels safer, curious, softened. She feels drawn, because your swagger isn't a trap. It's not a trick, it's a truth. And the truth is you're not trying to be attractive, you're simply aligned. And alignment is what makes the ground beneath your feet sacred. Chosen one, your swagger is not just in the way you walk, it's in what walks with you. Your body has become a conduit for something deeper than posture or confidence. It now carries energy, potent and focused, sexual and sacred, wrapped in calm. That energy doesn't just stay beneath your skin, it moves with you. It extends from you like a current, a magnetic pull wrapped around your frame that people can't explain, only feel. Before you say a word, before your footsteps echo in a hallway, before your eyes even meet anyone else's, your energy has already entered the room. Feminine women, in particular, notice it immediately. Their nervous systems are more attuned to subtlety, more fluent in unspoken truths. And the moment you arrive, something in them responds. Not in panic, not in fear, but in a way they haven't felt in a long time, like something stable and undeniable has entered the space. Your movement is charged now, but it's not wild, it's not seeking, it's held. Held in a container of self-respect, of sexual command, of internal silence. When you move through a crowd, it's not your footsteps that catch their attention. It's the feeling your presence leaves behind, like smoke trailing from a fire that refuses to burn out. Your walk isn't to get somewhere. It's a declaration that you're already home within yourself. There's heat behind your walk, not lustful desperation, but invitation. It says, I know who I am, I know what I carry, And I don't need to give it to just anyone. That's why your presence doesn't feel threatening. It feels chosen. It's why women don't recoil, they lean in. Not because you've chased them, but because your energy offers what their feminine has longed for, direction without force. You've stopped using your movement to manipulate. You've started using it to mirror. And what the feminine sees in you is not someone trying to impress her. It's someone who can hold her. Your energy no longer begs. It stands still in the center of your chest, radiating out like a sun that refuses to shrink. You are not walking to take up space. You are walking as space itself. This is what has changed everything. Not your words, not your outfits, not your grooming. Your energy, your internal architecture. The very current running through your nervous system has transformed, and now the body simply follows. It can't help but move with swagger, not arrogance, not bravado, but that unshakable tempo of a man in tune with his mission, his root, his breath. And the world watches, the feminine watches. She tracks the way your hips don't rush, the way your shoulders swing just slightly, the way your head remains steady as if it already knows the outcome. You're not trying to seduce, but everything about your rhythm seduces truth. It wakes something up. You are no longer moving to be impressive. You are moving because your energy is too full to sit still. Your swagger is now the visible signature of your unseen force. And those who feel it will never forget it, not because you were loud, but because you were true. This is the energy behind your movement now. Unmistakable, untouchable, unforgettable. Chosen one, the way you walk now no longer reflects uncertainty or internal fragmentation. Your gait has transformed into the steady, unhurried movement of a man who no longer wonders who he is. Each step you take is not merely motion, it is a message. It declares to the atmosphere around you, to the men who feel your presence shift the hierarchy, and to the women who instinctively lean toward your field. This man knows himself. You don't march like someone forcing importance. You don't shuffle like someone unsure of his place. You glide, with the rhythm of a body no longer trying to be seen but completely at home in being witnessed. Feminine women notice this first, often before you even cross their path. Something about the way you move tells them everything they need to know, that you're not chasing, that you're not lurking, that you're leading, even in silence. Your swagger is not puffed up with shallow dominance. It's refined with presence. Your chest is open, but not in performative pride. Your shoulders don't swing wide for attention. They move because you've trained your body to stop apologizing for taking up space. You no longer carry your past like a weight on your spine. You walk like a man whose history has been integrated, not hidden. There's a rhythm in your step that doesn't come from mimicry or imitation. You've earned it. It came from solitude, from suffering you didn't run from nights of silence that hardened your core and revealed your truth. Now your gait carries the memory of initiation. It speaks of moments where you could have collapsed but chose presence. It reflects not just strength but spiritual clarity, and women feel that clarity. They can sense, deep in their intuitive body, that your walk is not decoration, it is direction. You walk like a man who could be followed, not because you asked, not because you flirted, but because your feet move like they've touched real ground. Ground you built, ground you bled for, ground no one gave you. This is what makes your gait impressive, chosen one. Not that it's stylish, but that it's settled. Every step says, I've been through fire, I've faced the mirror, I carry nothing false. Your swagger is no longer loud. It's low and resonant, like a drumbeat the feminine can hear beneath the noise of everything else. It quiets her fear, it stirs her imagination, it softens her edges. Even men begin to notice. They sense a hierarchy that isn't based on who speaks the most, but who moves with the most truth. You don't rush, you don't freeze, you flow. And in that flow, there's an unmistakable weight. You walk like a man who knows he is the gravity, not the satellite. And when the feminine sees that, she doesn't just watch, she feels. Because the way you walk has become the physical evidence of your spiritual alignment. And that is a language she understands instinctively. You no longer need to explain who you are. Your gait already tells the story. Chosen one, your swagger used to be something you tried to construct, an external display you hoped would convince others of your worth. But now, something purer has emerged. Your swagger no longer needs an audience. It no longer needs a mirror. It exists even when no one is watching, because it no longer comes from your ego. It comes from your essence. You've stopped performing. You've stopped peacocking. You've stopped trying to match the energy of others just to belong. You belong to yourself now, and that belonging echoes in every stride, every effortless breath. This is the kind of swagger that doesn't announce itself. It's simply undeniable. The feminine feels it immediately. She's seen 1,000 men strut and perform. She's learned to distinguish bravado from truth. But when she sees you, her body leans forward without instruction. She doesn't analyze you, she feels you. Because your movement isn't trying to impress, it's revealing something real. You don't dress for validation. You don't walk like you need to be chosen. You're not adjusting your masculinity to appeal to what's trending. You've stripped all that away. You've returned to the primal center. You've claimed your sexual energy and mastered it, not by suppressing it, but by honoring its weight. And now when you move, you're not flashing it like a weapon. You're carrying it like a flame in your chest. There is no show. There is no seduction. And yet, the effect is greater than any performance you once rehearsed. Because what the feminine feels around you is not the echo of a man trying to be sexy. It's the radiation of a man who is no longer ashamed of being deeply, fully alive. Your swagger is subtle, unforced, and that's why it's so powerful. When you walk, women don't feel stared at, they feel seen. When you pass them, they don't feel hunted, they feel remembered. Your swagger does not approach, it calls. And that calling doesn't say, come prove yourself. It says, I already know who I am, meet me if you dare. This is why your presence disrupts the usual rhythm, why conversations falter when you enter the room, why voices lower, why eyes follow. Not because you demand attention, but because you carry nothing false, and truth always disrupts the lie. There is no show left in you. Only signal, only essence, only the soundless pulse of high sexual energy completely governed, flowing through your body in the rhythm of a man who no longer runs from his power. And that rhythm, that movement, that walk, chosen one, it's what makes your swagger unforgettable. Because you're not trying to be impressive. You simply are. And the feminine, she sees it. She feels it. She responds, not to the show, but to the presence underneath it. Chosen one, the way you move through the world now carries a pulse, unseen, unforced, but undeniable. It isn't loud like the energy of a man trying to be noticed. It doesn't rattle or flare. It hums, it rumbles. It moves through space the way bass moves through a crowd. Not heard at first, but felt in the chest, in the gut, in the spine. Your high sexual energy is no longer chaotic. It has become a rhythm. And your entire being now moves in harmony with it. There's a cadence to you that wasn't there before. The way you walk, stand, turn your head, or speak. It's no longer accidental. You are not rehearsed. You are reverent. Your motion is now connected to your power source, the root of your masculine spirit. You are plugged into the sacred current of life, and instead of wasting that charge, you now carry it with control. This is why the feminine feels so differently around you. Because she senses the masculine pulse, that deep, steady rhythm in your body that doesn't need explanation. She feels it without you touching her. She hears it without you speaking. She senses it not with her mind, but in the part of her soul that responds only to truth. That part of her has gone silent around so many men. But around you, it wakes up. You are no longer sporadic or restless. You don't rush to impress, you don't shrink when observed, and you don't push energy out like a man trying to earn attention. You contain it, and that containment is what makes your presence feel grounded, rich, magnetic. Feminine women feel it the moment they come close, not because you're performing, but because you're resonating. Your pulse is slow, not sluggish, intentional. Every move of your body carries the quiet confidence of a man who knows where he's going and doesn't need to announce it. You don't chase outcomes, you draw them in. And when you speak, your voice carries that same rhythm. A pace that says, I am not hurried by approval, I am not shaken by rejection. You've become sovereign in your tone, and that tone settles everything around it. You used to think charisma was about volume. Now you know it's about vibration. And your vibration is tuned to a deeper frequency. It doesn't need spotlight. It is the flame behind the curtain, the heartbeat that holds the room without trying. You no longer try to lead with your words, you lead with your rhythm. Feminine women respond to rhythm. It is how they know who they can trust. When your presence carries a pulse that is steady, strong, and slow, they instinctively relax. Their nervous system picks up on it before their conscious mind catches up. Their voice lowers, their laughter softens, their edges begin to round. Because they sense a man whose body does not lie. And your body now carries the truth of a man who is fully present within himself. You are not moving like a man who needs to be chased or chosen. You are moving like a man who has chosen himself. And that kind of man doesn't move randomly. He moves with rhythm, with timing, with masculine music playing through his steps, his stillness, his glance. Your swagger is no longer about style. It is about signal. And that signal says, this is a man who has nothing to prove and everything to offer. Chosen one, your swagger has become a signature, a silent code only the feminine can read. Not because you wear it like armor, but because it rises from a source within that no one else can replicate. This swagger is not style stolen from a trend. It is not the artificial posture of false confidence. It is the physical byproduct of real, cultivated power. You've stopped asking the world to give you permission to be a man. You've stopped waiting to be validated. That permission now comes from within. That authority now pulses in your spine. And that's why the way you move through the world is so impressive. Because your swagger isn't born from ego, it's born from earned alignment. Feminine women are surrounded by men who try to impress, men who flex, posture, perform. They are used to watching masculine energy stretch itself thin just to be noticed. But when you walk by, something different happens. You don't stretch, you don't flex, you hold. And in that holding, a mirror is shown. You've stopped walking as if the world owes you something. Now you walk as if you've already claimed your portion. There is no longer a desperation in your energy. No more proving, no more looking to be seen. You are seen because your presence says, I know myself. Your swagger impresses not because of how loud it is, but because of how quiet you've become in your certainty. You carry power like a second skin. It doesn't clench, it doesn't flare. It simply rests in your jaw, in your shoulders, in the rhythm of your breath. And that resting power does something that performance never could. It invites the feminine to trust you. Not because you're perfect, not because you've said all the right things, but because your energy is clean, clean of craving, clean of games, clean of flinch. This kind of swagger cannot be faked. It emerges only when a man has done the work, when he has looked at his hunger without fear, when he has made peace with his masculinity instead of hiding from it or abusing it, when he no longer tries to possess the feminine, but honors it through the way he moves. Your steps no longer say, look at me. They say, watch if you want, but I'm already going where I'm called. Your stillness no longer says, I'm uncertain. It says, I'm listening. Your very posture now radiates presence, and presence is the rarest thing a man can carry in a world full of noise. You are now the man women speak about after you've left the room, not because you tried, but because you didn't need to. Your swagger has become a quiet storm, a slow fire. A presence too rooted to imitate and too subtle to ignore. You don't walk like a man who is hunting. You walk like a man who has arrived. And the feminine, when she sees that, doesn't just notice. She remembers. She remembers what it feels like to be near a man who is not selling a version of himself, but embodying his true self. That is the power behind your swagger now, chosen one. It doesn't demand respect. It commands it through presence. And that presence is why the world pauses when you pass. Chosen one, you no longer burn wildly for the world to see. The flame inside you has grown quieter, hotter, more refined. No longer a bonfire demanding attention, but a subtle fire that simmers just beneath your skin. And feminine women feel it, even when they try not to. They sense it not with their eyes first, but with their bodies. It's the way their heart stirs when you walk past, the way their voice softens, the way they suddenly forget what they were saying. You've become the kind of man whose presence reaches into others without touching them, because your fire, now sacred and contained, radiates invisibly. It's not about heat anymore, it's about control. You've learned to regulate the immense charge of your high sexual energy, and in doing so, you've discovered something ancient. That real attraction is not about exposure, it's about tension. And tension, when unspoiled by desperation, becomes intoxicating. Women feel it before they see you. It's the way your footsteps echo with grounded cadence. It's the way your eyes stay longer than they used to, not in hunger, but in unwavering recognition. You don't need to scan the room anymore. You already know the room feels you. You don't need to speak first. You let the air adjust to your presence. Your fire makes the room warmer, not in temperature, but in energetic frequency. And the feminine, which is made to bloom in warmth, begins to open around you even before she understands why. There's something in your stride now that doesn't beg for response. It evokes it. Something in the way your shoulders move, the way your breathing stays calm, even in chaos. The way your body moves like you're not in a rush to arrive because you are already rooted where you are. This groundedness turns your fire into gravity. It doesn't shout, it pulls. And women respond, not because you provoke them, but because you remind them. You remind them of something they buried in a world full of loud boys and insecure men. You remind them of the feminine's natural desire to soften, to be drawn into presence, to feel safe in desire rather than ashamed of it. You've become the man who gives permission without a word. Not because you say, "Come closer," but because your essence says, "I will not misuse what approaches me." They feel it in their pulse. They feel it in the spaces between sentences. They feel it when their hand brushes yours by accident and the electric truth of your presence lingers like heat on skin. This is the subtle fire, the slow burn of high sexual energy fully owned. No performance, no explosion, just truth. And the feminine, attuned to truth more than anything else, surrenders to it. Not to you, but to the memory of herself that awakens in your orbit. You don't chase, you don't flirt out of need. You carry heat in silence, and that silence has become the most seductive frequency on earth. This is why they stare a little longer than they should. Why they open without understanding why. Why they dream about you days after only a moment in your presence. Because your swagger no longer says, "Look at me." It says, "I am fire, and I will not burn you unless you choose to be warmed." And most women, especially the ones who've forgotten what it means to feel safe in their own desire, do choose, again and again, because in your silence, they feel seen, in your stillness, they feel stirred, and in your fire, they feel free. Chosen one, your swagger no longer speaks to the eyes alone, it speaks to the heart. It reaches places inside her she didn't think anyone could access without words, without touch, without permission. You don't walk like a man trying to impress. You walk like a man who is already connected to something deeper, and that connection gives her a kind of emotional permission. Permission to exhale, to soften, to remember herself in your presence. She doesn't respond to your walk because it's stylish. She responds because it carries a rhythm that makes her body relax and her walls drop. There is something about the tempo of your steps that says, "I am not in a hurry because I've already arrived within myself." And that arrival calls her to drop the performance she's worn all day. Her laughter becomes less rehearsed, her gaze more still. Her heart, for once, feels safe in motion. You don't walk toward women as if they are prizes to win. You walk through the world like a man who carries his own prize inside him. Presence, awareness, restraint, clarity. You don't open doors just to be liked. You open them because that's what a man in rhythm with himself does. And that rhythm is what the feminine responds to. Not the action alone, but the intention underneath it. When you walk into a space, the air changes. Not just because you're confident, but because your presence offers something stable. She senses that your body is not seeking an escape, that your eyes are not looking for someone to fix you, that your swagger is not a mask, it's a map that leads her back to her own heart, her own softness, her own sacred rhythm. And it's not something she's used to. She's been around men who move to be watched, who walk like boys in oversized armor, hoping to impress their way into acceptance. But your swagger is quiet. It doesn't shout, it doesn't chase, it invites. It says, "I know where I'm going. You're welcome to walk beside me, but I won't break my pace for anyone who hasn't earned it." This is why she leans in, not because you asked, but because your presence opens a doorway she's been waiting to walk through her whole life. A doorway back to the place where she doesn't have to prove anything, where she doesn't have to be clever or perfect, where she can just be, because you are already being. And this This is what true swagger does. It doesn't just attract the eye, it opens the soul. It doesn't just make hearts race, it makes hearts trust. Your swagger now carries the dignity of a man who is no longer performing masculinity, he's embodying it. And the feminine feels the safety in that embodiment like an embrace around her heart. She doesn't just look at you, she feels seen by you. She doesn't just smile at you, she feels softened by you. And when you leave, she doesn't just miss your face, she misses the way your presence made her feel more herself. That is what your swagger now carries, chosen one, not performance, but permission, not display, but direction, not seduction, but safety. And in that safety, her heart opens, because it knows it has finally found someone who can hold it. Chosen one, your swagger no longer pulls like a trap, it leads like a path. Feminine women aren't drawn to you because you flash promises or flood them with charm. They are drawn because your very presence guides, without ever demanding. There is nothing predatory in your energy anymore. Nothing scattered, nothing grasping. Your high sexual energy has matured past the point of needing validation. It no longer leaks out through performance. It radiates inward first and then outward in waves of grounded clarity. She feels it the moment you step into her orbit. Not a lure, not bait, a direction. A current of masculine energy that says, I know where I'm going and I'm not afraid to walk it alone. That kind of certainty doesn't chase, it doesn't convince, it inspires. And she finds herself drawn not to your words or posture, but to the integrity behind every movement you make. You are not inviting her to a show, you're revealing a way. You don't walk ahead to disappear. You walk ahead with enough presence that she feels safe following, without ever being told to, because your body no longer says, see me, it says, feel where I'm going. And if she's ready, if she's rooted in her own truth, she will follow, not out of submission, but out of recognition. You are no longer the man who pushes the feminine to open. You are the man who makes openness feel natural. She does not feel overwhelmed by your power. She feels included in it. She feels your awareness, your restraint, your ability to listen, even as you lead. And in that space, she finally feels the freedom to let go. Because she knows you won't abandon her in the depth. This is where everything shifts. You don't hold eye contact to impress. You hold it because you are unmoved. Your body doesn't reach out in thirst. It remains still in magnetism. Your walk, your rhythm, your way of being all carry the message. I will not bend my path to win you. But if you're ready to walk beside presence, you will be met. And this is what makes the feminine respond. This is what creates that ache of curiosity, that pull of reverence. She doesn't feel pursued, she feels aligned. She doesn't feel seduced, she feels seen. And she doesn't feel coerced, she feels called. You are not a mirror for her ego, you are a mirror for her soul. And when a woman meets a man who is no longer trying to take something from her, but instead carries something she can trust, her body, mind, and heart begin to move in harmony with your direction. It's not about control, it's about clarity. And you now move with the kind of clarity that cannot be bought, taught, or imitated. It's the clarity of a man who no longer fights against his own essence. A man who leads because he has become his direction. This is why you are so attractive now. Not because you say the right things, but because you walk like truth has settled into your bones. And when the feminine feels that truth, she responds, not with noise, but with surrender. Not with hesitation, but with flow. Because for the first time in a long time, she feels led, not lured. Chosen one, your swagger is impressive not because of how it looks, but because of what it reveals. It reveals fullness, not excess, not ego, but a soul that has stopped looking for someone else to complete it. Your walk now belongs to a man who has become whole, who no longer moves through life in search of affirmation, but from a place of sacred overflow. There is nothing rushed in you anymore, nothing scattered, nothing fragmented. Your steps carry a weight because you are carrying nothing unnecessary. The world feels your approach because your energy is no longer trying to arrive. It already has. And the feminine, who is constantly sensing the intention behind movement, feels this immediately. She's used to men who posture, who perform their masculinity like a costume, but you wear yours like a second skin, soft in its texture, firm in its structure. You are no longer trying to be the most confident man in the room. You are simply the most present. and that presence has become its own gravitational field. You walk like a man who is fed from within, and that nourishment radiates through your every gesture. You are not seeking to consume. You are inviting others to be nourished in your presence. And that invitation is what the feminine responds to. It is why she feels beautiful around you, not because you flatter her, but because your energy tells her she is safe to soften. You do not need to be entertained. You are not easily swayed. Your joy is not the product of stimulation. It is the natural fragrance of internal wholeness. And that joy, when carried by a man with high sexual energy, becomes irresistible.